big thanks to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. In this tutorial, we'll be creating a sci-fi octopus. I call this character the Cyber Kraken, and it's a concept where I wanted to find the balance between organic, fluid motion and futuristic mechanical technology. So we'll be using a lot of different techniques in this tutorial, some of which I've not used before on this channel, which I'm very excited to show you. And we'll also be using some techniques I've covered in previous tutorials. So in the description of this video, you'll find all the tutorials and assets I'm referring to throughout this video. So here we are in Blender, and the first thing I want to do is that I want to make the arms of the octopus. And I want to rig them first, and then I want to populate the rig with objects. So let's make an armature object, and let's take the bone and move it down like this. And then let's extrude them by 0.1 meters. And now we want to add one final bone to the end of this segment. So with the tip of the last bone selected, press Shift S to open the snap menu and go cursor to selected. So now when we press Shift A new bone will be created exactly where our 3D cursor is. And by adding the final bone this way, it will not be parented to any of the other bones, because we're going to be using this last bone as the controller for our inverse kinematic constraint. So now we want to go to pose mode by pressing Control Tab. Let's go to pose mode. And now we want to select the last bone and then hold down Shift and select the second to last, and then press Shift I and then to active bone. So now what we just did was to add an inverse kinematic constraint that will calculate the position and rotation for all the bones in this chain. And you will probably recognize this from my robotic arms tutorial. So this is pretty much the exact same technique. So to get a little bit more control, select the bone that now just got a new color, and under bone constraints, you can see the IK rig, and now you can enable rotation. So now when you select the controller bone, you can rotate and move this around, and you can already see that we're getting a lot of interesting motion from this tentacle arm. So this will make it possible for us to animate some really organic motion, even though this arm will be built only by non-deforming objects. Okay, so let's just focus on making one arm for now, and then we'll come back to duplicating it later. So let's get back to object mode, and in this tutorial, we're going to have a lot of different type of objects of different scale and different purpose to this scene. So we want to separate these different types of objects in different collections. So in the top right corner, I want to double click this collection and I want to rename this to armature. And to make a new collection, you can press C, and let's call this one links. And now you can press 2 on your keyboard, which will isolate collection number 2. So let's make the non-deforming segment that we want to have on our tentacle rig. We're essentially going to make the box that has the suction cups for the tentacle in it. Let's start out by making the suction cups and place them below these links. So let's just hide this box for now, and let's take this circle and let's add a mirror modifier, and let's set it to both X and Y axis. We can make these suction cups by just extruding this circle down, and we can scale it up. So now this becomes an exercise in just finding what details we can add to make these sci-fi suction cups for the tentacles. So I want to do a loop selection by holding down Alt, and let's press F3 and search for checker deselect. And now you can inset faces here by pressing I, and then you can extrude these inwards. And this is just such a nice way to just add details. And now let's just inset some faces here as well. You can press the inset twice to make it be on every face. So I try to add shapes that are pointing out a little bit. You maybe want to create some shapes that will get some shadows here and catch some highlights there. But essentially it's just what shape will look interesting when you light it, basically. That's my kind of thought process here. So yeah, I just want you to experiment with these checker deselect, inset and extrude faces, and just try and add some simple geometry that will give detail to your model, and maybe it looks a little bit futuristic sometimes. I don't know. I think it's a fun exercise. Okay, so let's make the suction cups just a little bit deeper. So let's select these parts and press Ctrl R to make a loop cut, and I kind of want to slim this down just a little bit. Okay, so I'm getting happy with the design of the suction cups. Now let's get back to this main shape of these links. I want to make some really big bevels here, so let's go Ctrl Shift B to bevel the vertices. I kind of want to keep this box shape, I like that. And one thing I really like to do in combination with this extrusion modeling is to use the bevel modifier, because that will take every angle that is just a little bit too sharp and turn it just a little bit more detailed. And I'm just going 100% gut feeling on this. I'm not following any rules or trying to make any logic other than maybe this could work as a part on a deep sea exploration vessel. I don't know. The best part about this process is that no one gets to tell you what you can do. That's the best part of being an artist. Let's add some filters or some ventilation. I don't know if you can call it air condition underwater, but something like that. This is relatively low poly stuff, but once we start adding light sources to this, you get all these beautiful highlights and shadows, and our eyes are drawn to this kind of details, I think. So now that we're about to parent this to our armature, I don't want any surprises. So let's join our mesh. Right click, convert to mesh, and then Control J to join all the meshes. So now we have this one object, which is just going to be one link. And we can move this around and there are no hidden loose parts that we need to worry about. We just want this individual object to be parented to our bones. And by the way, I think I actually want to get rid of these ventilations here and on the back here, just so they can connect a little bit easier. That makes sense, right? Okay, so let's hide the armature just a little bit more. I want to add some joints in between these links. So let's just make a circle and extrude this. And let's make sure it's precisely 0.1 meter, because that is going to be the length of each link. And I think I also want to add a sphere to the end here, just to make sure that there are no gaps when we are connecting these. So let's join all these objects by pressing Ctrl J again. And now when I'm duplicating this, I want to duplicate it by pressing Alt D to duplicate linked. So that means that whenever we're doing a change to one of these links, it will update to the other links. And that is just going to save us so much work down the line when we are adding materials to this object. Okay, nice. So now what we want to do, we want to parent these objects to the armature without any deforming. Let's move this a little bit out of the way and let's set the 3D cursor to be at the very center, which is Shift C. And then you want to set the pivot point to be the 3D cursor. And the hotkey to bring up this pie menu is dot. And now we want to take these link objects first and duplicate them with Alt D. Make sure you view it from the top orthographic view. So let's press Alt D, R, and then hold down Control and let's do 45 degrees. And then let's press Shift R until you have 8 arms. Okay, so when duplicating the armature, I want you to press Tab to go to edit mode. And then I want you to go Shift A and make a new bone in the very center. And then take the first bone in the arm and hold down Shift and select this core bone and go Control P, make parent and keep offset. So now we are going to have this core bone in the center, which is going to be able to control all these arms. So select all the arms except for the core bone and press Shift D to duplicate these arms. And then hold on Control, let's do 45 degrees. And let's just press Shift R until you have 8 arms. So now we're going to parent all these links to the armature, and we don't want any deformation at all. We want each link to be parented to the bone that is closest to them. And there is actually an add-on that does this automatically without any deformation, and it's made by this amazing GitHub user called Gentile. So once you have this add-on installed, you first want to select the links, and then you want to hold down Shift and select the armature, and then go Object, Parent, and then all the way to the bottom here, you have Parent to nearest bone if you install the add-on. So when you click that, you have to wait just a few seconds. And now you can take these bones that we have, these control bones at the very end of our rig, and you can move this around and you have 8 rigged octopus arms. But as you can see, the rig is lagging a lot and it's breaking at the end here. And this is because all the controller bones are trying to control the core bone at the same time. So to fix this, we can tell the IK constraint to stop influencing the chain at a certain point. So select all the bones that has the IK constraint, head over to the bone constraint properties, and we want to increase the chain length. And you can hold down the Alt key to affect all the bones at the same time. So let's hold down Alt and let's just click to increase this incrementally. And when you see these lines in the center here show up again, you reach the last bone. So we want to do 1 less than that. You know what? I want to do 2 less actually. So these first bones are completely stiff, which is going to make it easier to connect these arms to the head of the octopus. So now we got a working rig for our octopus arms, and it's a surprisingly flexible and fun rig to play around with. Now I want to give a big thanks to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Skillshare is an online learning community for creatives with thousands of online classes led by industry pros across film, illustration, design, freelance productivity, and more. And I think one of the most exciting features on Skillshare is their learning paths. These are curated class collections designed to take you from beginner to advanced in a specific skill or area of expertise. Imagine having a roadmap for your learning, guiding you through each step of the process, where you get a clear direction that helps you keep track of your progress. Whether you're into photography, graphic design, music production, cooking, business, marketing, Skillshare has a lot of great learning paths on many different topics. I've been checking out this learning path from Brent Evanston. It is 7 classes where you get a solid foundation for drawing practices. And what I like the most is that you actually get practical advice for how to draw and also great theoretical principles, which I think is a great skill set to have as a 3D artist. And also as a 3D artist, I can recommend Southern Shoddy. He's got a great introduction to Blender class on Skillshare, and his visual style is so warm and charming. So the first 500 people to use my link will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare, so check out the link in the description to learn more. Now let's get back to the Cyber Kraken. Okay, now we have modeled and rigged the arms of this octopus, so now we want to make the head. So to keep things tidy, let's make a separate collection for the head. So in the outliner in the top right corner, you want to just collapse these other collections, and let's press C to make a new collection, and let's call this head. And now since this is our 3rd collection, you can just press 3 and you will have the entire head collection isolated. So to make the head, I just want to make a simple icosphere, and I want to increase the resolution to maybe 5. And then I want to press O to enable proportional editing, and you can press G to move around and use your scroll wheel to change the influence. And you can use R to rotate, and you can move this around and essentially just figure out the shape of the head of this octopus. And let's right click and set the shading to smooth. And I just really like working with this proportional editing technique. You can just select the vertex and press S and scale things down. It's a really fast way to just outline a basic shape. Okay, so let's give this octopus some eyes. I think I want to create the eye socket first. I want to go Shift A and make a circle, and make sure you create it at the center of your scene, and then you can press Tab and move it away from the center, because that way we can use the mirror modifier. So let's set the mirror modifier to Y-axis, and I also want to use a bevel modifier. And I want to rotate this around, and I think I want to place them on the side. I want these big eye sockets on the side of the octopus. Yeah, I think this is good. Let's extrude it in here, and I kind of want to scale this up so it becomes a part of the octopus body. That's like the purpose of the eye socket here, I think. So for the actual eyeball, I think I want to use just an icosphere, which has a really high poly count. And let's scale this down and let's just place it so it kind of pops out a little bit. I feel like that's kind of cool. I want this big eye that can pass by underwater. So let's add some thickness to this. So press Ctrl R to do a loop cut, and then you can extrude this out. And now you can see you get this beautiful interaction with the bevel modifier here. And I want to just keep adding details where I'm beveling these loop cuts, and I'm using I to inset these faces, and then I might extrude them again. And to have some consistent design, I want to go for some details that are a little bit similar to the patterns that we ended up with for the suction cups of the tentacles. And it's not that difficult since we're using the same techniques. Okay, so I think this head is a little bit too long. I want to make it a little bit shorter, and I want to just refine the design a little bit for this head. And for the eye here, I think it's important that it blends in with the body like that. Okay, hang on. I want to try and duplicate the eye and just see if I get some ideas. So what if maybe at the back of the octopus, there are some eyes that can just see like maybe what's behind? I feel like that's an interesting concept. You know what? Let's actually make 3 of them. Yeah, I want to do 3 eyes just at the back of the head of the octopus. I kind of like that concept actually. Okay, let's try and actually move the head up a little bit and back. Yeah, I think that's good. Okay, so but now the body isn't attached to the legs. So I want to add some sort of a cage that will attach this body to the legs. So let's go to the link collection, and I want to make a circle, and let's give this 8 vertices. So it's like this octagon shape. And I kind of want to just extrude this and do the bevel treatment. Let's just try and see if we can connect this somehow. So I want to do some loop cuts here, and I want to extrude this up. Let's move it back. I think this is cool. I think this works to have this cage. So I don't know what it's protecting yet, but I want it to be surrounding some sort of powerful object. And yeah, I'm very excited to see what that's going to be. Now let's start using some new techniques. I want to make some tubes because we are underwater, and I'm thinking that we are going to need to have some sort of buoyancy control system. So let's go Shift A, Curve Bezier, and let's press Tab to go to edit mode, A to select all, and X to delete. And then let's hold Shift Space and go down to Draw. So now we can draw a freehand spline like this. And I want to kind of draw a tube that goes all the way across the body. Yeah, and maybe a little bit of a tail. And let's go to Object Data Properties, Geometry, and we can increase the depth. And then let's press W to go back to manipulating the curve segments. And I want to select these 2 and right-click Subdivide, just so we have more control. And then I want to just hold down Shift, select one more, and right-click Subdivide. I kind of want to attach these to the body. So let's just make a plane and turn this into some bracket clamps. Add some loop cuts. Let's extrude this up. Delete this edge, and yeah, delete this edge as well. So now what we can do is we can select these edges and press Ctrl B and then scroll and add this kind of smooth bevel and then move it in a little bit. So now let's add a solidify modifier, and let's add the bevel modifier. And now these work really nice together. So let's increase the thickness of the solidify. And let's lower the bevel. And let's right click and set the shading to auto smooth. And if you're watching this in Blender version 4.1 or later, this is going to have a different name, but it will still be pretty much the same, I think. Okay, so it's way too big, so let's scale it down and let's move it down here. And I kind of want to make it look like this is actually clamping. Okay, so let's make some bolts to these bracket clamps. So I want to make a circle. Oh, it's still set to 8 vertices. Let's increase this to maybe 24. And I want to scale this down, and I want to extrude it out like this because I want this to be like a screw head. So let's just delete these parts here, and then let's just fill in by pressing F on these vertices. And these edges are too sharp, so I want to use the bevel modifier. Okay, nice. So now I just want to duplicate these along the tube here to just make sure that it really looks like this tube is actually attached to the body. And I think when making a 3D character concept like this, it can sometimes be difficult to figure out what new parts to add. But a mindset I've found to be really helpful is to try to think what this creature would need to exist in the real world. So for example, right now I'm making these bracket clamps to attach some tubes, which may allow this creature to hover at specific depths. I think it's fun to get carried away with this kind of possibilities. You know what? Let's make one more tube. I want to make a circle. So let's go Shift A, curve, circle. And we basically want to give this the same treatment. So we want to scale this up and we want to give it some thickness. And in edit mode, let's actually subdivide it as well. And now it just becomes this tweaking exercise of where is this curve going to be attached to the body. I feel like it's a little bit of a rubber band almost. Okay, but wait, the main mission here was to attach the body to the arms, and I actually haven't done that yet. So let's take this cage that we made, and let's find some of these edges here. I want to take all of these edges and select them. I want to just duplicate them into a new object. So press Shift D to duplicate them, and just press P to separate by selection. So now we can hide just the original cage. So I want to press E and R on the Z-axis, and then I want to extrude these out. Yeah, okay, nice. So now we actually have these attached. You know what? Let's actually get this little tube out of the way here. I kind of want to extrude them in a little bit more. Let's make them a little bit thicker just where they hit. So I've set the origins to be individually, so I can press E and then S to scale this up, and then set the individual origin back to the center, and then scale them into the middle again. So now I'm just basically doing the same inset, extrude kind of workflow that we've done previously. Okay, the legs are attached, and the technique I'm going to show you now is just so cool. I just recently discovered this. It is very, very powerful. So I want to take one of these bracket clamps, and I want to make sure that it's just one object. So now what we have here is that one clamp is just one single object, and I want to set the origin of the object to be at the center here. So let's select two of these edges, and let's go Shift S, cursor to selected, and then let's right click, set origin to 3D cursor. So now what we can do is we can set the snapping to face project, and then enable align rotation to target. And now this will snap to the surface of the body. No, hang on, that's the wrong direction. We have to rotate this around the 3D cursor by 90 degrees. Okay, nice. So I'm just moving this around by pressing G, and you can see that it's actually rotating around the surface. So now you can just place this here. Oh, it's actually, if I hide the tube, it works. And I think it should be smaller, so I want to scale it down. And I'm using Shift Tab, by the way, to turn on and off snapping. Okay, so let's move to the next one. I want to go Shift right click to just set the 3D cursor here, so I remember where it is. And now let's just press H to hide the tube. And let's press Shift Tab to enable the snapping again. And now you can just move this over where it is. And let's press Alt H to bring back the tube. And now it is actually working. That is so cool. There we go. Okay, you know what? Let me just turn on the cavity here. I want to do both. So it's just a little bit easier to see the distance here in the viewport. I should have done this before, I think. You know, I want to make more tubes and I want to draw it on the body. So let me just duplicate this ring here, delete the vertices, and then I'm going to use Shift Space and go down to Draw again. And let's set the projection here to surface instead of cursor. So now we can actually just draw like this. Oh, look at that. That is so powerful. Okay, so let's do one over here as well. Just a squiggly line. Oh, it intersects a little bit. Okay, so I'm gonna have to tweak it just a little bit. I kind of want this tube to go in from the eye to eye, you know? And I want to make this go over. So let's press E to extrude, and then let's make it go down again. Maybe the tube enters the body at the bottom here. That makes sense. I think this is swinging a little bit too much. Let me just get rid of some of these. Just clean this up a little bit. It's too much swinging. Okay, that's better. I think I'm more happy about this. And I kind of want to keep it asymmetrical, so I just want this one side to have this, I think. Okay, so now let's add some clamps, and I'm going to duplicate this one and place it there. Yeah, let's hide it and let's duplicate it one more. These clamps are snapping to the tube. What if I just... Okay, hang on. I got a really good idea. What if we can just make the tube infinitely thin and use it as a reference while we're just duplicating these brackets? That should be possible, right? Because then it won't be snapping to this tube, so we don't have to hide it all the time. So yeah, let me just set the bevel depth here to 0. And nice, now look at that. That is so much faster. Oh my god. Yeah, and that, okay, nice. Okay, I want to add some more details to the head. I don't want this to be like perfectly smooth surface. I want to have a lot more details. And the snapping method that we've been using is actually so much more powerful if we use it in edit mode instead of object mode, because then you can actually make the shapes deform based on the surface they're being projected on. So I'm going to make a circle. And I'm just going to extrude it. And then I'm just going to fill the center here. Let me just rotate it towards the camera so it's still round. And I'm going to go to edit mode. I'm going to enable snapping again with face project. And we can just move this on here. Hang on, let me just scale this down. So now I can move this over. And I can press Shift D and I can move it over here and over there. And I'm doing another one over here maybe. And if they get too distorted, you can just scale them on the X-axis or the Y-axis. And then just press G and move them again. And then the projection will sort of refresh. And it's so cool that these are just completely flush with the surface. And you kind of want to be aware of where you're viewing this from, because it will affect the projection you have. Oh, look at that. They're all just completely flush with the surface. That is just so powerful. Let me just add some more here. Let's make a small one. Yeah, I think I want to mirror some of these, but not all of them. So let's just press Shift L to deselect these at the bottom. And then I want to go Shift D to duplicate. And then Control M and X to mirror on the X-axis. Oh, that actually worked so well on the first try. Okay, that's nice. Okay, so now for the grand reveal, let's extrude these. So let's press E and extrude. No, hang on, I need to fix the normals. So select everything and press Shift N to recalculate normals. And now you can press E and then extrude. Oh my God, look at that. That looks so cool. That is so organic. So you know what? I want to use the bevel modifier. Oh, nice. I think I'm going to make this into a glass material or something. You know, that's such a nice way to get some really interesting details on the body there. Okay, let's make some energy storage devices. Some sort of three-dimensional capsules that are kind of pointing out on each disc. Yeah, let me hide these collections and let me just make a new collection. I'm going to call this capsule. So yeah, I just want to start out with a sphere and I want to make it a little bit more detailed. And let's set it to smooth. And I want to just split it in half. And then I want to just start extruding. Yeah, I want to do the checker deselect. Let's extrude these up like that. I want to do the same treatment with the bevel modifier. Let's add like a donut. Let me just select some patterns here. And then let's just try and extrude this. And maybe the center one as well. Move that up. And let's inset some faces on this. Okay, cool. You know, you can probably tell that I'm just doing stuff, but yeah, it feels good to just experiment. Okay, I want to extrude these up. And then I want to kind of make this guardrail. Yeah, I think this is looking good. I have no idea what this is, but it looks a little bit futuristic. I think this is going to be like an energy storage device. Okay, so let's place this on the body then. Okay. Oh, nice. That looks really good, actually. Oh, wait, it's not connected properly. Maybe I can just extrude this a little bit. And then the 3D cursor is still at the same place. So now when I move it over. Yeah, okay, nice. Okay, so now I'm going to duplicate this. And remember to duplicate with Alt-D. Oh, look at that, has so much depth. And then let's do the below here. These three, they're just too small. I'm just going to delete them, I think. You know, I'm so happy about this. When you zoom out, it looks organic, but up close, it looks kind of sci-fi and mechanical. I just love that so much. Let's add some more details to this cage. I want to add some kind of ventilation, you know? Yeah, I'm just going to make a new collection. Okay, ventilation. I want to make a cube. Let's just do a simple loop cut. Yeah, let's get rid of all the other stuff. I feel like ventilation is just these triangles, right? You want this overhang like this. And I want to duplicate this. And I kind of want to connect these. Yeah, let's just do that one more time. So it's 4 of them. Let's make a cube again. I want to make a hole for it. Yeah, let's make this thicker with the solidify modifier. Let's make it a little bit more technical. Let's just add some cubes. And let's just duplicate this. Okay, yeah, nice. I'm just converting that down to a mesh. So yeah, I'm doing a fast workflow today and I'm not keeping this non-destructive. I'm committing to this design. So now it's all about just placing it, duplicating it, moving it down. Okay, nice. Yeah, I think that helped. I'm really starting to like this design, but I'm feeling that the end of these tentacle arms are missing a little bit of intention. I kind of want to add like something to them. Maybe like a spike or something like that. So yeah, let's just make a new collection and let's just call this spikes. And I want to start out with a plane. Okay, yes, I kind of want to make this like sharp spikes. So it's like a saw blade, I think. I'm just going to fill this shape and then I'm going to just extrude it. Let's inset some faces up here. Let's just move these up like that. I think I like the top better than the bottom. So now let's duplicate this like this. I kind of want to add something here. So let me just take these. Maybe I can inset some faces. And then I kind of want to move this forward. Then at the back here, I kind of want to make, yeah, let's do a torus. And I just want to add some, like a connection. I don't know if it's like a spring or if it's, maybe we can do like this. That feels nice. Okay, so let's merge all of this to one object and let's scale it down. And let me just place it at the end here. And I want to do Alt-D. So let's just duplicate. Oh, and we have to parent them to the armature. So select all the spikes and then select the armature, and then let's go object, parent to nearest bone. Perfect. So now we have the spike. Yeah, I like that. Okay, so now we can really start seeing that this is that's a really cool design. Okay, so we need to parent all these other objects to the core bone. We're not going to be using parent to nearest bone for this. We're just going to parent to the bone directly. So let's select the armature and let's press Control Tab and let's just select this core bone, and then let's go back to object mode. Let's take this cage here and just move it to the head collection. So now we can select everything that we have, everything that isn't the arms, and then let's select the armature and then press Control P, parent to bone. Now you can move the core bone around and it will control everything that isn't an arm. Just make sure that you have the core bone selected before doing that parenting to the bone. Okay, so now we can actually try and give this a little bit more of a dynamic pose. So I want to just select all these control bones here. And now we can move this from the side and you can press Alt-R to reset rotation. So make sure you have the pivot point set to individual origins. And then you can press R and then Z again. So now you can rotate these down like that, which looks really cool. And you can set it back to median point if you like. And you can scale them down. And you can take each individual controller and you can move every arm. And I kind of want to make it look like it's going in a direction. Look at that. That just feels so organic. Oh, it's a little bit glitching if I'm rotating, but moving is fine. Yeah, let's just do the location. That's much better. And by the way, if you think these lines are a little bit annoying, you can go to the overlays and disable relationship lines. Okay, so we are finally getting ready to add some lighting to this. And I want to start out with some volumetrics. So let's add a cube and let's scale this up. And I want to press F2 and rename this to volume. And then I want to split my viewport in half. So now let's go to the shader editor by pressing Shift F3 4 times, which is actually kind of crazy. And let's click new. And let's get rid of this principal BSDF node. And in the material output, let's just drag out this volume socket. And let's search for volume and let's go principled volume. So now we can set this to render view and we can add a light. And now this is way too thick, so let's change the density to 0.01. And in Outliner, I want to press C and make a new collection. Let's just call this scene. And we're going to place all this camera and lights and volume in this collection, I think. And I want to also move it to the top. And to make our viewport a little bit easier to work with, select the volume and go to Object Properties, Viewport Display, and let's just set Display as Bounds. Now when you go back to Solid View, we can see through the cube. So let's move our light up here and let's just scale up the volume. And you can right click, adjust light radius, right click, adjust spot size, and right click, adjust blend size. And now you can right click, increase the power. And let's just make it really strong. Let's just go to the object data properties and let's just increase it a lot. Let's do 50,000 or something. Okay, let me just reset the location by pressing Alt-R and Alt-G, and let's move this up. And let's set the world strength to 0, and let's just enable the viewport denoiser. Hang on, I want to see this in full screen. That just looks so cool. I want to see this better. Let's just add a camera, Shift A, make a camera, Control Alt Numpad 0. Let's make the volume just a little bit thicker. And I want to kind of change the color as well. So let's change this to, let's just remove green and red. Yeah, I kind of like that. We want it to be like really far underwater. Look at all these details that are suddenly coming up. We've done a lot of cool stuff already. Let's start adding some materials here. I want to start out with this eye socket, I think. So let's select the eye and let's press New Material. And I want to change it to glossy. No, hang on. Let's do a mix shader, diffuse, and then glossy with a low roughness. I don't understand. Oh, I'm using it on the volume. Okay, sorry. Yeah, I added a material to the wrong. Okay, so you want to make sure you set it to surface. And then I want to make a material for the sphere. So let's click this little plus icon here. And let's click new and let's call this glass. And then let's select the mesh that has the glass material in it. And let's click assign. So I want to set the glossy color to Fresnel. So we get this really deep and beautiful eyeball. Okay, let's make a material for the body. So I'm just going to select the body and click new. And let's just call this body. And I want to change it to a mix shader with diffuse and glossy. But hang on. I'm not really... Yeah, look at that. That doesn't look good. I think we need more vertices here. So I want to add a subdivision surface modifier. So you can press Ctrl 1 to add that. Okay, so let's add a material to these tubes or pipes. Yeah, I'm going to call it pipe. And let's set the surface to maybe glossy. Yeah, okay, let's just do that for now. And we'll come back to that because I have some plans. Okay, so now let's start adding some actual textures to the body of the octopus. So we're going to be using free textures from Ambient CG. These are all public domain, really high quality textures. So I'm just going to search for metal and I'm going to do this one, metal 46B. So I'm going to download the 2K JPEG.zip, which is more than enough for what we need today. And then I also want this texture called plaster. So let's do this painted plaster 17. So now I'm just going to right click, extract using 7-zip. And now in Blender, make sure you have the Node Wrangler add-on enabled. Let's select our body, and then let's select this diffuse texture and press Ctrl T. And it will add the image texture node, and it will add a texture coordinate as well as a mapping node. So now you can just click on the open on the image texture here and just find your metal texture. And I'm going to start out by just using the displacement. But nothing happens because we need to UV unwrap this. So select the body, press tab to go to edit mode, and then press U, and let's go Smart UV Project, and then let's just press OK. Okay, wait, I changed my mind. I want to use the color instead of the displacement. So let's hold on Control and let's get rid of this diffuse shader. Press Ctrl T on it again, and let's open and let's set it to color texture instead. And you can see that it's a little bit low resolution right now. So let's just connect this to the mapping and then increase the scale. So yeah, I'm just going to make it maybe 3 or something. And now you can see it's a lot more detailed. And now we can take the displacement texture. Let's just move this out of the way and plug it into the height of a displacement node. And let's lower the scale. Let's do 0.1. No, maybe 0.02. No, 0.1. No, let's do 0.04. Okay, nice. Look at that beautiful depth map. That just looks really nice. Okay, so what we just did is pretty much what I'm going to do for all the textures here. It's going to be a displacement texture for pretty much all the textures. And then I'm going to use various color textures for the diffuse channel and some cases the glossy channel. And I'm going to be tweaking the materials a lot for this project. And I don't have time to show all that. So here's what we're going to do. Now you know that I'm using this basic setup with a color texture into the diffuse shader. And sometimes I'm going to use a color texture into the glossy shader as well. And then I'm also using a displacement texture into the displacement node. So that is the basic setup. And then it all comes down to just tweaking stuff. So after I've tweaked all the materials, I'm going to take a screenshot of all the different materials I'm using. And then I'm just going to include that in this video. So when we're approaching the end of this video, there will be a bunch of node trees that you can just screenshot and use in your projects. Because this would be like a 10-hour tutorial if I were to include all my settings for all the materials. I hope that's okay with you. Okay, let's try and do some subsurface scattering. So here I have the subsurface scattering node, but it's a little bit difficult to see. So let's add an area light. And I want to go to object data properties and I want to lower the spread. And let's just hide this spotlight for now. And now if I move this up and to the side here, now you can actually start seeing that the light is coming through. And I need to change this because I think these are the color primaries. Yeah, so I'm going to keep the blue one the highest. Okay, nice. That looks cool. But I don't really feel like I understand how bright these lights are. So I want to add some glare. So press Shift F3 to change the editor type to compositing. And let's just add a filter glare node. And then I'm going to enable the viewport compositor set to always. So now if we set it to fog glow, maybe medium. No, I think high is good. And let's just lower the size a little bit. And then also let's just do a transform lens distortion. And let's just add a little bit of dispersion. So now I feel like we can truly understand how bright these lights are. Yeah, look at these beautiful gold rays. Okay, let's actually make the eye a little bit more interesting. I think I want to have a texture in the center of the eye here. I want the eye to be more interesting than just some reflective surface. Let's try an emission material first, like a really strong one. I think that's a little bit overwhelming. Okay, so I found a really cool pattern on Ambient CG. It's this one. It's called Sheet Metal 002. I'm just going to download another 2K JPEG.zip of that one as well. I think that's interesting. Oh, that's so cool when you view it from the side. Let's try and make it a little bit more subtle. Okay, so maybe if the texture isn't lighting up itself, but maybe there's this ring of light around it. Yeah, so you have like this circle around it, and then the metal will be reflected in this circle. Oh, yes. Okay, so yeah, look, when you see it from the side like this, you can just see the texture is popping out. Like, yeah, I really like that. That just feels so futuristic. Okay, so look, I realized something really cool. If I'm using the same subsurface scattering material for these energy storage devices, look at that, you get these really cool colors. I feel like that adds a lot. Okay, now I have a really cool idea. I want to add some bubbles to this buoyancy control system, these tubes. I actually made a tutorial about this in a previous live stream where it's pretty much the exact same setup. You can see you have these bubbles that are moving around like that. So you should check out that live stream if you want to learn exactly how to do it. But the principle is that you want to convert this Bezier curve into a mesh, because then you will have a perfect UV projection that you can just map a Voronoi texture to. And then you can animate the location value for that Voronoi texture, and you will get these really cool animated bubbles. And then it becomes a shading exercise where you have to give it like a really cool, strong color and make it really bright and yeah, and use some transparency. Okay, so remember I talked about the inside of this cage, that I just really want to have something that it's protecting. I think that it could be like an energy core that feeds these tubes with some sort of particle system. But it's not a real particle system, it's just a shader. So I'm also explaining how to make this energy core in the tutorial I did for the live stream. So I can highly recommend that you check that out. So this is the node tree I ended up with for this bubble particle effect that I'm using here. And I think it's really powerful. And then these values are keyframed. Okay, so there's one more thing that I want this octopus to have, and that is the tail. I'm aware that octopus probably don't have tails, but I kind of want to have something that is floating behind it in a way. So let me just speed model a segment of the tail as fast as I can, and I'll get back to you. Okay, that is the tail segment. I don't really know what I ended up with. I went kind of into the flow state there, but there is some ventilation here, there are some guardrails, and there is an antenna. Okay, so now let's rig the tail. I'm going to select the armature, and I'm going to make a new bone in the same armature. So this is a bone that is added inside the edit mode. Yeah, I think it's going to be 0.5 meters, and then I'm just going to extrude it a bunch of times. And then we're going to duplicate the tail segment. So let's use Alt-D, and then let's just Shift-R and make a bunch of copies. And now let's add a bone to the end here. Let's rotate it, and I want to scale it down a little bit. And then let's go to post mode, and let's do to active bone. So it's the same as we did at the beginning. And I want to enable the rotation, but I also want to change the chain length. So it's stiff at the very beginning here. You know what? I think I want to add some spikes to the tail. Take one of these spikes, and let's just duplicate it. Nice. Okay, but not all objects has materials. We need to add materials to these tentacle segments. Let's just give this the regular material that I've been doing. And now you can see, since these were duplicate linked, all of them gets the same material. But the problem is, since these were duplicate linked, they all have identical UV mapping. So you can see this pattern here is not really looking very realistic. It looks very repetitive. So let me just split my viewport in half. So we want to use a vector math node, and we want to plug that into the location of the mapping node. And then we want to add a node under input, object info. And then we want to add a combine XYZ node. So now let's plug this into the vector. And now let's take the random into the X, for example. You can do all three of them if you like. And if we add another math node here, just a regular math node, and let's set this to multiply, for example. And now you can see something is happening. We can change this value and they will behave differently on each object. And essentially, this allows you to get a unique texture projection for each object. And that is so nice since these are duplicate linked with the same UV unwrapping. So yeah, this is the node 3 I ended up with. It is a very simple setup. And if you wanted to make it more advanced, you can, for example, look at changing the rotation or scale or stuff like that. It's very efficient to tweak this if you want to get some random projection of your textures. Okay, so below here on the tentacles, I just want to add some circles and I want to just give them some emission material. So let me just add a Voronoi texture and let me just scale this. And maybe I'll give it some color as well. Okay, nice. Yeah, that's looking really cool, especially with the subsurface scattering from the other material there. Okay, one more thing I need to do because this isn't really realistic, this point light here. I want to change this into more of a caustic light. Like I want to make some real god rays. So I did make a tutorial about this where I made this caustic effect that just looks really cool. So we'll be doing a simplified version of this. So I'm going to take this area light and it has a spread of 0. Let me just split my viewport in half here. And then on the light up here, I'm going to click use nodes. And then I'm going to just add a Voronoi texture set to distance. And then I'm going to press Ctrl T. And now you can increase the scale here, or lower it, I guess. Look at that. We have a really cool effect already. Now let me just move this light over here. That is so nice. Look at that. You can actually see the caustics being animated on the back of the octopus. That is so cool. That is amazing. Yeah, I can highly recommend that you check out this video where I'm talking about caustics for getting really excited in the middle of night here. Look at that, I'm sweating almost. So yeah, here is the entire node setup I ended up using for this Voronoi texture light. It is a very nice way to get these god rays. Okay, so now I want to animate the arms by just giving them some procedural noise. And the thing is, I actually made a tutorial about this exact thing already. It is down here in the Animating Robotic Arms in Blender Part 2, the lesser known sibling of this crazy video. It's around here, around 5 minutes in. Here is going to be exactly the same setup. So instead of animating the empty object, you will be animating these bones objects instead. That's pretty much the same technique. So I can highly recommend watching that tutorial. But essentially what I'm doing in that tutorial is that I'm taking every X, Y, and Z location and X, Y, and Z rotation. And then I'm going to just add this noise modifier to each of them. And then the point is that you want to offset the phase for each of the noise modifiers you're adding so that each leg will get their own location noise. Okay, so I kind of want the octopus to be passing by the camera. So let's just move it back a little bit. Let's press IL to make a location keyframe, move it forward a little bit, and press IL to make it another keyframe. And then hold your mouse down here and press Shift E and set it to linear extrapolation. So now when you press play, oh, that's too fast. Let's just, yeah, still too fast. Yeah, look at that. You got this really creeping forward. Yeah, I really like that. Okay, that's it. I almost feel like I should apologize for just speeding over so many parts and just referencing to my older tutorials. I just couldn't fit it all inside this single video. But I just really hope that you learned something from this tutorial. And now let's have a look at the final result. So the final project file is available on my Patreon. You can open it, dissect it, look at all the settings I used, and you'll also get access to a bunch of other project files that I spent a lot of time tweaking. So if you want to support my work, Patreon is by far the best way to do it. I myself learn a lot from looking at other people's project files. There's a link in the description if you want to check it out. I did actually record the full 7-hour project, and I've posted that as a 40-minute time-lapse on my second channel. So in that video you can see how this project was actually created from empty blend file all the way to the final render. And if you watched this entire video, I really appreciate that. Thanks for watching.